So you want to learn how to embroider your own patch? I'll show you how in this tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and put my fabric in my hoop and then trim around. Doesn't need to be exact, but do leave yourself a little bit of room at the end. And then I'm going to tighten the fabric in the hoop so it doesn't need to be super tight quite yet. I do all of my designing on my iPad, so I'm just going to trace from my design on my iPad right onto the fabric. This patch was inspired by my beautiful home city for the moment, Los Angeles, California. Ocean sunsets on the Santa Monica Pier. So I've gone ahead and transferred the design onto my fabric, and now I'm going to go ahead and flip it so that it's on the outside of the hoop. Just try to situate it as best as you can in the middle. And now this time we'll want to get the fabric as tight as we possibly can in the hoop. It just makes the stitching more pleasant. Okay, now at this point I like to kind of clean up my design a little bit. Some things might get a little bit skewed when you do the transfer of flipping the fabric over, so I want to just kind of straighten out my horizon line. All right, so now we have our design, and we'll be able to start stitching. So to begin with, I typically always use 6 strands of embroidery floss, but I use 3 strands and I double them and tie a knot at the end. So I'm just preparing my floss right now. I use a number 5 DMC embroidery needle. I try to keep any knots away from the very edge of the hoop, just so that there's not any extra bulk around the edges, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and start maybe about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch inside on my first line. At this point, you'll just continue the process using a satin stitch from the top band of color all the way through the rest of the design. Just slow and steady wins the race. So once I finish that first row at the top, as I move down the piece, I start from the bottom of the row up to the top. You want to make sure that you don't have any white parts showing between stitches, so you want to use the same hole at the top as you use at the bottom. Once you're done with all of your stitching on the body of the patch, go ahead and pop the fabric out of your embroidery hoop. And then for me, I knew that I wanted a white border around the edge, and then I wanted to stitch black around that. So I wanted a little bit of space between the base of the embroidery and the outside rim or edge, if you will. I found a size that worked perfect for me. It was basically the top of a coffee cup. So I just took that and traced around my embroidery piece and then trimmed it off. And then you just go ahead and finish this up. If there are any little white spots on it as you're stitching, don't worry about that, because we're also going to attach a couple more stitches once we put it onto our finished piece. Just tie a couple of knots on the back. And then I use a heat and bond adhesive. It's a double-sided adhesive, so you'll need an iron to affix this to the back. I will trace the same size as this and then make it a little bit smaller, just so that it doesn't come over the edges. So once you have the shape cut of your heat and bond, it's time to go ahead and take your iron and attach it to the back. And give it a little bit of pressure. So then once it's cooled down, you should just be able to peel that paper back off. Done with that, and then this part is also sticky. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it to this cute little canvas pouch. There's lots of fun things. You could even dye these ahead of time. Sometimes I dye them different colors, and then position it how you want. I think it could still use a little more, so I'm going to go ahead into the inside just to get a little bit closer to the So then once you've got it affixed, I'm going to go ahead and rethread my needle with some more black thread and go ahead and just do tacking stitches, maybe every ½ inch around the edge. I had a couple of spots at the top that were pretty white, so I'm going to start there. And it's the same general stitch. Now you're just going through the canvas and the edge of the patch. So you'll just continue on around the edge every ½ inch or so, adding those stitches. And if your fingers get sore, it's okay to take a break and step away. When you've gone around the entire edge, you'll want to make sure that you tie a couple of good knots again. So there you have it, an embroidered patch on a little canvas pouch, full of sunshine. And if you like this project, you'll love my class on abstract embroidery on Domestika. Just click on the link below.